There's a sound a shovel makes when it bites into ice, a kind of grinding crunch that runs right up your arms and plants itself deep in your teeth. Most folks around Willow Creek County hear that and figure someone's just being responsible doing what needs to be done. But that morning in Maple Ridge Estates, when my shovel hit that noise, what it really meant was that I was about to get fined. I'd barely cleared a single stripe through the snow, just enough for one set of tires, when I felt it, that pressure you get when somebody's watching you real close. My truck was still running behind me, exhaust curling into the frozen air, plow blade hovering just above the ground. That's when I looked up and saw it, a neon orange sticker slapped right in the center of my garage door like a warning label. Underneath a letter already soaking through with snow, official, polite, all the right words lined up. According to the HOA, I wasn't allowed to clear my own driveway. Not the street, not the sidewalk, my own driveway. The letter said it was for my protection. Liability issues something about uniformity only approved contractors. They'd get around to it later at their discretion. Later meant afternoon, but my wife Emily needed to get to the county hospital before sunrise. So standing there in the cold letter in my hand, I realized this wasn't about safety, wasn't about snow, wasn't about anything but control. All wrapped up in legalese delivered with a polite smile. I just didn't know yet that by the end of that day, all that quiet confidence was about to cost them everything. Now maybe you're sitting there thinking, it can't really be that bad, right? But I'll tell you, if you've never tangled with a homeowners association, you probably haven't seen how small rules turn big in the wrong hands. For me, I'm Daniel, late 30s mechanical engineer by trade. Always believed rules should make sense, that you put things in order for a reason, not just for the sake of power. Emily and I bought into Maple Ridge Estates 3 years back, figuring it'd be a quiet place to build a life. Streets curved, all pretty timber beams stuck on fake mountain houses, promised all the charm of Colorado living, none of the hassle. Most neighbors were folks like us, nurses, contractors, engineers. Maybe a couple retirees tired of being alone but not done with peace and quiet. For a long time, the HOA was background noise. They did the landscaping, sent out newsletters, reminded you about trash bins every now and then, stuff you could ignore. Everything shifted the day Karen Whitlock took over as HOA president. She'd been a real estate agent and carried herself like every conversation was a negotiation she planned to win. She'd smile, talk, calm, dress every new rule up as if it was for your benefit. Didn't come in swinging, just listened, took notes, waited. Then, after a winter so mild nobody even remembered shoveling, she started rolling out policies, all preventative. Snow removal was now about liability, not just clearing roads. She talked about insurance lawsuits, how one person's mistake could risk everything. Only one contractor, one schedule, no exceptions. It sounded reasonable till the first real storm came through. See, that night the forecast said light snow. But what we got was a wall of white close to a foot dumped fast and heavy. The kind of snow that's pretty until you realize it'll turn to ice if you don't move it early. Schools closed, radio warned about black ice. Emily's a nurse, had to be at the hospital before dawn. No option to wait for the sun. That's why I'd prepped the truck, warmed it up, got the plow ready. I wasn't thinking about bylaws, just making sure she could get out safe. And standing there with that violation letter, it clicked. This wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't even about order. For the first time since we moved in, the HOA was telling me what I could and couldn't do on my own lot. We'd had little run-ins before, like a warning for leaving a ladder out after cleaning gutters, or a note about our porch light being a touch too warm. Annoying, but you brush it off. This crossed a line. What made it worse, everyone knew the truth about the HOA snow contractor. They were slow. Sometimes they'd show up hours late. Other times they'd just skip half the neighborhood and swear it was done. Folks grumbled but never said anything in public. Bring it up at a meeting, Karen would just smile and say patience was part of living in a community. Consistency takes time, she'd say. Time exactly what I didn't have. So I called the HOA. No answer. Left a message, then emailed with photos of the snow, cited the county warnings. The reply came back in seconds, automatic, said messages would be reviewed during normal business hours. Normal hours while the driveways iced up. There I was, standing in the cold, phone in hand, feeling boxed in. If I obeyed, Emily might be in danger. If I ignored the rule, I'd be risking fines, maybe more. That was the moment I understood this wasn't about snow. This was about authority. The neighborhood felt off that morning. Quiet, but not the good kind. Curtains twitching, garage doors cracking open and stopping neighbors outside with shovels scraping a little, then pausing like they expected to get yelled at. Nobody spoke. Everyone watched. Then the group alert came through. HOA announcement: only the official contractor could clear snow. Anyone caught otherwise would face immediate enforcement. Zero tolerance. Zero tolerance for common sense. I hadn't even lowered the plow yet when I heard tires crunching. Karen's SUV rolled to a stop, perfectly positioned to be noticed. She stepped out, bundled up, clipboard under her arm. No rush, no wave. She looked at the street, then right at me. Her voice was gentle. "Mr. Mercer, I know this feels frustrating, but I'm actually trying to protect you." I just stared. She gestured at my truck. If I cleared my own driveway and someone slipped, that liability fell on me. She said she'd hate to see me lose my home over something avoidable. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning wrapped in a smile. She started recording me on her phone, calm, no drama, just collecting evidence. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Emily worried. She said roads near the hospital were iced up, cars sliding all over. Asked if our driveway was clear. I told her what was happening about the sticker, the liability talk. She was quiet for a second, then just said, "Daniel, I don't feel safe pulling out if it's not cleared." That's when everything else faded. This wasn't about policy, it was about whether I'd let some committee put my wife in danger. So I took a breath and got in the truck. Lowered the plow, cleared one narrow path, just enough for Emily to get out. Karen's phone followed every move. Emily waved, part thanks, part worry, and disappeared around the corner. Karen said nothing, just got back in her SUV and drove off. 10 minutes later, my email pinged. Second notice of violation. Fine doubled. New paragraph: further action, legal remedies, lien placement. I stared at it, hands cold but steady. This wasn't about what I'd done, it was about making an example. Neighbors stopped shoveling. Some went inside. The message was clear: obey or pay. And standing there, it hit me. This wasn't enforcement, this was a demonstration. Karen wasn't worried about safety. She wanted everyone to see who held the reins. By midday, the storm had moved on, but the ice hadn't. Driveways were slick, cars inching along. Still no contractor, no salt, no plows, just the rules standing alone. Then a sound, a sharp crack, a yell from 2 houses down. Frank Holloway was sprawled on his driveway, hand clutching his leg, face pale. Ice untouched. Ambulance came, but even they struggled to get traction. Every time those wheels spun, it felt like an accusation. I'd followed the rules. Because I did, Frank was on the ground. That was it. Annoyance, fear, they drained out, replaced by something cold and steady. I started digging for answers. Online first, HOA minutes, vendor contracts, budgets. Everything looked clean. But then I remembered I'm an engineer. I keep records. Pulled out old binders page by page until I found an addendum tucked behind a snow contract listing properties exempt from the snow service. All vacant except one. Karen's address, signed, board approved. Sat on the garage floor, anger condensing down to a single sharp point. She'd carved herself out, enforced on everyone else. Called Mark Ellison, neighbor and lawyer. He asked one question. Does the HOA own your driveway? They didn't. Plat map was clear. Mark told me an HOA can't stop you from clearing your own private property unless the rules say so, and selective enforcement. That's how things fall apart in court. So I documented everything. Video, photos, timestamps. I didn't plow even though I wanted to. I let the consequences pile up, delivery trucks spinning, neighbors slipping. Every incident I recorded. Then I wrote a formal notice to the board, fact, not emotion. Cited the duty of care, the failures, the selective enforcement. Attached all the evidence. Karen wrote back, polite, cold, all about compliance. She hadn't understood, or maybe she had and just didn't care. Next step, I filed a complaint with the county. Safety issue, not a personal beef. Submitted the same evidence, then waited. When the meeting notice came, emergency session at the clubhouse, I knew the pressure was landing. The place was packed. Faces tight, no jokes, nobody killing time. Karen stood at the front, polished but stiff. She started in on weather vendors' liability. You could feel the room turning. When she tried to pivot, blaming selective obedience for making things harder, Mark nudged me. I stood up, asked, just to be clear, no exemptions to the policy, right? Karen smiled, relieved, said, of course, no special treatment. That's when I put the contract addendum up on the screen. Karen's address, exempt. The silence that followed was sharp. Karen stumbled, called it a clerical error, then temporary, then necessary. Each answer tripped over the last. Mark explained plain as day how selective enforcement kills rules. When the county officials walked in, they didn't have to say much. They confirmed the evidence, cited the HOA for hazardous conditions, ordered corrective action. HOA's lawyer advised them to suspend the rule drop. All fines let homeowners clear their own driveways. The vote to remove Karen as president passed without debate. She left with a stack of papers that meant nothing. The board moved fast. All fines canceled. New rules written simple, boring, effective. The contractor handles common areas. Homeowners clear their own driveways when needed. The next morning, real plows showed up, salt spread, ice broken. That was the sound of order returning. In my mailbox, a letter from the interim board, apology, confirmation that all fines were void. No legal speak, just accountability. Emily never missed another shift after that storm. Neighbors started talking again. Folks checked in, shared info. HOA meetings got shorter and fairer. Frank came home slower but grateful. Karen faded out, sold her house, left town. Nobody chased her for an explanation. Once the rules were forced into the light, her authority just evaporated. Maple Ridge isn't perfect now, no place is. But it's fairer. Rules make sense, and when they don't, people ask why. Every time I hear that shovel on ice sound, I remember safety isn't something you threaten people into. It's something you build together when accountability is real. Looking back, the part that sticks with me isn't just what Karen tried to pull. It's how easy it was for her to get away with it for a while. Not because she was loud, but because she wrapped control in calm words and counted on nobody checking. I didn't win because I was brave. I won because I paid attention. Because I kept boring paperwork everyone else tosses out. Standing up didn't mean shouting. It meant asking the right question, being ready when the truth tried to hide. The next winter, first snow falling, I stood by the window and listened. No tension, no fear, just quiet. I went out, started the truck, and cleared my driveway early, safe, no permission needed. If there's a lesson, it's this: bad systems don't survive because they're strong. They survive because people stay quiet. The moment you insist on accountability, things start to crack. Stay quiet and they last. But speak up, show the truth, and watch what happens. So now let me ask you, where do you draw the line between order and overreach? When does protecting a community turn into controlling it? Ever tangled with an HOA or a rule that just made no sense? I'd love to hear your stories. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're from or what you'd do if you were in my boots.